Welcome to Africa's lost heritage. Today, we journey into the shadows of the Caribbean, where sugar once flowed like gold and rebellion burned beneath the cane. This is not just a story of slavery. It's a story of fire. In the heart of sugar plantations under blistering sun and the lash of whips, enslaved Africans refused to be broken. They resisted with silence and song, blades and flames, in secret and in battle. What you're about to hear is the untold history of rebellion in the Caribbean, the uprisings that shook empires, the Maroon communities that defied capture, and the spirit that refused to die. Who are these Maroons and how have they come to be named Maroons? For centuries, these stories were buried, silenced by colonial powers afraid of the truth. But today we dig them up. This is the story of those who dared to fight back, of how sugar became the battlefield and freedom, the cry that echoed through the cane fields. Section 1. The economy of sugar and slavery. By the 17th and 18th centuries, the Caribbean had become the jewel in the crown of European empires. Islands like Jamaica, Barbados, Saint-Domingue, now Haiti, and others were rich not in gold or silver, but in sugar. Sugar was the white gold of the era, a luxury that became a staple. Its production made fortunes for colonial powers but brought unimaginable suffering to millions. The production of sugar was labor-intensive and cruel. Enslaved Africans were forced to clear land, plant, harvest, and process sugar cane under blistering sun and punishing conditions. The work was dangerous. Sharp machetes, boiling vats of syrup, and relentless overseers made injury and death common. By 1750, British colonies in the Caribbean exported over 90% of their sugar to Europe, generating massive wealth for a few and death for many. The slave system was designed to break the body and spirit, but African captives brought with them a legacy of resistance, community, and survival. And they did. Section 2. The first whispers of revolt. From the earliest days of slavery in the Caribbean, there were signs of defiance. Refusal to work, breaking tools, feigning illness, and running away were everyday forms of resistance. But over time, these small acts coalesced into full-scale revolts. One of the earliest known revolts occurred in 1675 in Barbados, where enslaved people plotted to kill the white population and establish freedom. Though the plot was discovered and brutally suppressed, it signaled what was to come. But where plots were discovered, escape became a new form of rebellion. In Jamaica, the Maroons, runaway slaves who escaped into the mountainous interior, waged guerrilla warfare against British forces for decades. They formed self-governing communities, maintaining African traditions and building new identities rooted in freedom. Their resistance culminated in the First Maroon War, 1728 to 1738, which forced the British to sign treaties granting them autonomy. These Maroons were often of Akan, Yoruba, and Congo descent. African nations are known for their warrior traditions. They brought these tactics with them into the hills of Jamaica. These were not isolated incidents. Resistance was an ever-present threat, and enslavers knew it. Fear haunted the plantations. Section 3. Saint-Domingue and the Haitian Revolution. No discussion of rebellion in the Caribbean is complete without Saint-Domingue, the French colony that became the site of the only successful slave revolution in history. In the late 18th century, Saint-Domingue was the wealthiest colony in the world, producing half of the world's sugar and coffee. Its economy ran on the backs of nearly 500,000 enslaved Africans. Inspired by the French Revolution and driven by their own dreams of liberty, enslaved people rose up in 1791. It began with voodoo ceremonies, clandestine meetings, and a plan. The revolt started in the northern plantations, where fields of sugar cane were set ablaze and masters were overthrown. Witnesses spoke of skies blackened by smoke and fields glowing with fire as enslaved people made their stand. Leaders like Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe rose to the forefront, organizing armies, forming alliances and battling colonial powers. Toussaint, a former coachman, showed strategic brilliance, aligning with Spain, then France, and eventually seeking full independence. The revolution was long and bloody, but in 1804, Saint-Domingue declared independence as the Republic of Haiti. It was a seismic event. For the first time, a nation led by formerly enslaved people stood defiant against the global order. The ripples of Haiti's revolution were felt across the Americas and Europe. It terrified slaveholders and inspired the enslaved. It changed the course of history. News of Haiti's success traveled far and wide, fueling fears of rebellion among slave-owning elites and hope among the oppressed. Section 6. Legacy and Impact. The legacy of these rebellions is profound. Though colonial powers tried to suppress the memory of resistance, lived on in oral traditions, music, and folklore. The bravery of those who resisted changed the trajectory of the Atlantic world. They hastened the abolition of slavery, inspired civil rights movements, and laid the foundations for decolonization. Haiti, once isolated and punished by global powers, remains a symbol of what enslaved people could achieve when united by purpose. The Maroons in Jamaica, Suriname, and other regions remain proud communities, whose stories continue to be told. Their resistance inspired freedom fighters across the globe. Today, their stories are finally being reclaimed. Museums, academic studies, documentaries, and cultural movements are giving voice to those long silenced. The Caribbean remains a region shaped by struggle and resilience. Its people carry the blood of warriors, rebels, and survivors. Their legacy urges us to ask, what chains remain today, and how do we break them? Conclusion. The story of rebellion in the Caribbean cane fields is not just a tale of suffering. It's a story of strength, courage, and the unbreakable will of a people. In the face of unimaginable oppression, enslaved Africans and their descendants rose up to demand freedom, dignity, and justice. They fought with machetes and muskets, with prayers and songs, with silence and fire. They paid the highest price, but they also claimed the greatest prize, liberty. In the silence of the cane fields, in the rhythm of the drums, and in the cry for freedom, resistance found its voice. Today, as we walk through a world still shaped by the legacies of slavery and colonialism, we owe it to them to remember, their struggle was not in vain. It lives on in every call for justice, every stand for human rights, and every effort to tell the truth about our past. Thank you for joining us on this journey through hidden history. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to Africa's Lost Heritage. Let's continue to unearth the stories that deserve to be told. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth.